I can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls cause I'm not in the mood, but then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that time can heal it all if you're patient, and soon it can all be worth it, all the searching. Pain is never really permanent, but damn it hurts, man. I could feel all of the turbulence and it's concerning. I've been searching for a purpose, I hope it's worth it. This society is really trying me. Ain't no hide and seek, I hide to be far from anxiety. I need my space, I need my privacy. I need some silence, please, you're all too loud. You don't speak quietly, opinions violently thrown across every surface. It makes me nervous. Is the world honestly burning? That's all I'm learning. Hope that we can make a turn and start reversing. All our minds and put the work in. We got some work, man. I started to do. I can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through. Gotta get through this, life is a nuisance, tie up some loose ends. I try to be human, find a solution, my evolution. A place like this, it didn't exist, we made it like this. So you can go pick the bad or the good, got a glass half wish. I know, it's easier to hide than just to lay low. Not everyone in life has got a halo. I'm standing in the red inside a payphone. Just wanna break, no, I'm not gonna give in. Take a last shot, Michael J. Win. No, I'm not a robot, I'm in my own skin. Never get lost when thoughts pull you in. I miss the old you, we died with a purpose. All the energy around me felt nervous. Scared I would pop out fast to the surface. Had to cut it off before you made me worthless. Torn apart, I've been torn and scarred. I had a given art, but now I'm thinking smart. I'm keeping up my guard, I'm hiding every card. A royal flush of love, you never know what's hard. With a back to the mat, gonna see where I'm at. I'ma fight like I'm mad, I'ma be something that they can never be me. Nice try, but they'll see I achieve everything while they stay salty.
All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. It is awesome that week one is here. I'm Matthew Friedman with Betting Pros. Welcome into the Sunday morning live stream in which I am going to break down all of the props that I like. Well, it's not all of them. I'm going to break down a lot of them. A lot of the player props that I like for the week one slate for the next, 15, 25 minutes or so. We got a lot of live streams coming up. So we got this one. At 10:30 a.m. Eastern, we've got the the prop show, the spread and total live stream with Pat Fitzmaurice. I will be on that as well. After that, we've got an hour of AMAs with Joey P and I believe it is Debro. Then after that, we have Joey P and Derrickson, aka Debro, and Andrew Erickson talking about the inactives from a fantasy perspective and looking at their key players for the week one fantasy slate. So a lot of live stream goodness coming at you for the next, 3 hours, 3.5 hours. All right, player props. I went 4-1, good for almost 3 units on Thursday Night Football. Hopefully we can keep that momentum going into week one. And I got to say that week one is a time when I want to go heavy on player props for a few reasons. The books tend to offer more props for week one than they do for a typical week because of all of the enthusiasm for week one. And I think they're more exploitable inaccuracies in the market because the books aren't focused on individual player production the way that, we fantasy sickos are. Like we've been thinking about these players for months, like looking at their target share, their market share, think about how many touches per game a guy is going to get. There are very few markets in the betting space where the recreational, the casual fans actually have an edge over the books. But this is one of those markets. We actually have an edge over the books, especially early in the year. And that's because the sports books, they've historically been bad at pricing guys in new situations and projecting or anticipating their usage. So think about rookies, veterans on new teams, players on a team with a new coach or a new quarterback or new key teammates. Think of someone like Jalen Waddle, who has Tyreek Hill next to him now. We fantasy players have a better sense of these things than the books do because they're focused on teams first and foremost. We focus on players. And then we think about teams after that. So we actually do have the edge in this market. And plus player props, they're fun. They're fun to bet on. So let's get after it. One of the guys I'm going to be talking about is Joe Mixon. That's what we call a tease in the business. And if you want a chance to win a signed Joe Mixon Cincinnati Bengals jersey, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now. Don't do it later. Don't do it when it's Fitz talking about the spread bets that he likes. Don't do it when it's Joey P on. Do it now. Do it when I'm talking about it. All right. Subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now. Comment below on this video. And that's it. We're going to announce the winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Okay, before I get into the breakdown of the props I like, I want to highlight some of the resources I used when researching for props this week. First, we've got the projections at Fantasy Pros. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see here. So we've got projections at Fantasy Pros, all of the projections for all of the players, right? For all of these quarterbacks, there are props in the market for attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, interceptions for the guys who run the ball, props for rushing, some of them even props for carries. You have that for quarterback, running back, all of the props, wide receivers, projections. So we have all of the projections at Fantasy Pros. And of course, we leverage that in our very awesome week one prop bet cheat sheet, which has a number of factors that I want to highlight here. Look here. Here's the prop. Here's the projection that we have. We have cover probability. So this will show that, given that Deontay Johnson has 4.5 as his projected receiving prop, we're projecting him for 6. We're saying that in 71% of situations like this, we would expect him to go over that number. So we give a 39% expected value to this prop, and we have rated it 5 stars. And so the prop bet cheat sheet, which you see here, is a wonderful resource. You can sort by position. You can sort by different types of props. So if you are a sicko who wants to root against people, you like seeing interceptions, you can go here and see all the interception props. If you want to sort for a particular game, let's say it's Thursday Night Football, right? You can just easily sort here and see all of the props for Thursday Night Football. A lot of different filters that you can use here. And I would say, I think one of the coolest tools that we have is our new prop bet analyzer. And it's new. It is premium. I'm going to walk through let's say Jonathan Taylor, who's the number one player in our expert consensus rankings for week one. Let's kind of do a little bit of a Jonathan Taylor walkthrough to highlight how awesome the prop bet analyzer is. And I mean, who cares about receptions for Jonathan Taylor? Let's look at rushing yards, right? That's what actually matters. That's what people care about. Okay, so you can see here the consensus line of 97.5 yards. You can see over here all of the different sports books where we are pulling in lines. And so you can see, all right, even though the consensus is 97.5, if we're going to be betting the over and it's Jonathan Taylor, we're projecting him for 111 yards going against the Houston Texans, who are horrible in run defense. If you want to bet the over on it, you can see here, the best place to do that is at BetMGM, where the line is 96.5. We have a 64% cover probability given how far the projection is above the consensus line, 20% expected value on that with a 5-star rating. Now you can see that last year, 10-7 record to the over on his yardage prop total. And you can see here the distribution. That's for the last 10 games. You can go back through and sort by last season. You can sort by the last 5 games. So let's look at what he did last season. And you can also layer on top of this the previous lines. So the line for this week is 97.5, right? But you can see here where his prop line was for all of these games during the season. And even though the consensus is 97.5, which is where it's set at here, you can adjust the line here because we're betting it at 96.5. So you can move that line down here. And let's say you think it's 97.5 on the consensus, but you think, okay, well, what if this line moves up? Like, what if I go to bet it and it's actually at 102.5? So you can move this line around, see, given his production last year, where he would have finished with a prop line of 102.5. And now let's say, okay, it's cool that Jonathan Taylor last year had this type of production, but what I really want to see is what he did in the situations where he was a favorite, because the Colts favored by 7 going against the Texans. And so here you can pull up all the games in which he was favored, and you can see the distribution of how he did last year versus the line of 97.5. Went 6 out of 8 to the over. And you can see in 2 games against the Texans last year, 145 yards, 143 yards. Bam, a very delicious matchup for Jonathan Taylor. You can see here his game log for last year. And, obviously we'll populate as 2022 statistics come in, we will populate the game log for this year. We will have information that comes in here once we have live 2022 data. And you can also see here, this is one of my favorite things here. It's not just what Jonathan Taylor did up here. That's all nice. What did the Houston Texans, who are horrible in run defense, what did they do last year? So you can see here that the overhit in 7 of the past 10 games for the opposing number 1 running backs going against the Texans. And this is, an assortment of different types of running backs. Elijah Mitchell, Justin Jackson, right? When he was filling in that one game for Austin Eckler. You've got Tevin Coleman back in the day when he was the lead back for the Jets. The dusty Adrian Peterson. Even Adrian Peterson hit the over last year when he was filling in for Derrick Henry. So really nice matchup here. And then you can see related player props down here for Jonathan Taylor. You can see a matchup summary. You can get some weather information here. You can see other lines for which Jonathan Taylor has odds in the market, right? All of that populates down here. And then you can see some key injuries, right? So you could see like Shaquille Leonard is out. So if we were looking at Dameon Pierce up here, you could go down here and see that Shaquille Leonard, the all-pro linebacker for the Colts, you could see that he's out. And you could say, oh, Dameon Pierce has a better matchup than I would have anticipated. So that's a quick walkthrough. Maybe not even quick walkthrough, but that's a walkthrough of the prop bet analyzer, which is one of the most amazing tools in the market. I say that obviously with some bias, but it is absolutely true. Okay, let's get into it. One of the first games that I want to talk about. And so we'll just kind of go through the filters here. We'll start through the slate. Saints at Falcons. And I should say also one more thing. I wrote a piece here, Friedman's favorite NFL Week 1 player props, that highlights all of the props that I've bet so far. Right. So I'm not going to cover all of these. I would just say, go see my article. It is free on the website. Go see my article if you want to see the props that I've bet. So I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm going to cover some of them here, just the ones that kind of stand out to me. And so the first one that kind of catches my eye here for this team, Cordarrelle Patterson. And I am thinking that over 29.5 yards is a pretty nice number for him. You can see here, that's the number we have projected for 40.3, cover probability of 63. We have it rated at 4 stars. He's got a tough matchup going against the Saints. We have in our unit power rankings at Fantasy Pros, we have the Saints as a top 6 defense with their defensive line there. Obviously a tough matchup, and Patterson, he looked bad. No questions about that. He looked bad last year in his 2 games against the Saints. I think in one of those games, he had 10 yards rushing, and the other, he might have had like 11. Maybe it was 9. He was bad. He was bad last year in those 2 games, but he's going to be fresh starting the year. we're projecting him for a decent number of carries. You can see here, rush attempts, 9.5 is the prop, 9.7 is our projection. With that kind of usage, you have to expect that he has more than, like 3 yards a carry. So over 29.5, I think that is a pretty good number there to be betting on. All right, so the next game that I would want to look at, let's say, I think I wanted to do Browns at the Panthers, the Baker Bowl. I mean, this is a great spot for so many things. A lot of unknown in this game, right? New quarterbacks for both teams. Christian McCaffrey coming back, Amari Cooper as a new wide receiver for the Browns. But Christian McCaffrey, right? He's the one everyone will want to look at in this game. So let's look at some Christian McCaffrey here. And what stands out to me for Christian McCaffrey, primarily under 45.5 receiving yards. We have this projected at 34.4. 5 stars is how we rate it, 65% probability of covering. Christian McCaffrey returning from injury in a offense that, even with Baker Mayfield there, who's probably the best quarterback he's ever had, I think that offense is still going to underwhelm. And so we also might see a situation where the Browns, with their running game, are able to hold on to the ball a long time, which I think means fewer receiving opportunities overall for Christian McCaffrey. And I think it's still going to be a fairly close game, which means that the Panthers can maybe try to establish the run on their own without necessarily needing to pass the ball all that much. So I'm going under 45.5 as the number here for Christian McCaffrey. All right, the next game that I want to talk about here, the 49ers at the Bears here. And one prop that stands out to me. And this is one that I almost always look at when it's in the market. Deebo Samuel rushing prop, under 29.5 yards rushing. I mean, come on. We're talking about a wide receiver. And I know that, like, in any one touch, Deebo can go for like 50 yards. So it's a little bit terrifying. But, we can look over here and we can see in the Fantasy Pros projections here, 22.5 is where we are putting this number. And I think it honestly should be even a little bit lower than that, because that's sort of taking into account like the totality of how he was used last year across the whole season. In the second half of last season, he was used much more as a runner. I think to start this year, given that George Kittle is out, given that they have Elijah Mitchell healthy to open the year, given that they drafted Tyrion Davis-Price, I think we see fewer overall carries for Deebo Samuel early in the season. So I will be taking under 29.5 rushing yards as his prop there in the market. All right, next game I want to talk about, we have the Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. And there are a couple of props that came to mind here. Joe Mixon. Let me see here. I think I first bet his rushing yardage prop at 15.5. And as you can see, that line has moved up to 16.5. So not as much value in the market. But I think there is still some value overall with him in that you can look at the rushing yardage here and you can see there's still a pretty good discrepancy between 70.5 as his prop and 81 where we are projecting that, projected it with 4 stars. The Bengals, I think now in the market are 7-point favorites. They are at home. I think it's an opportunity where they can really run the ball against a Pittsburgh defensive line that is pretty good at rushing the passer, not as good at defending the run. Mixon had some pretty big games against the Steelers last year. I think they just continue to lean into the running game. And I know like that's not what we want to hear for Joe Burrow or any of the pass catchers, but I think this is more of a Mixon game. So I am looking over with the rushing yardage here over is it 70 and a half? I think there's even some value if that line continues to move up. All right, the next game here, going to talk about the Eagles at the Detroit Lions. Now, let's see here. That is a little bit weird. Okay, well, I assure you there actually are some props in the market right now. Let's see if they pop back up. No. All right. Well, the lines that I do have here, Miles Sanders over 45 and a half rushing yards. I got this at minus 115 at PointsBet. I mean, it's a hilarious situation where Miles Sanders, uh, we have an editor here, Mike Mayer, does some baseball work for us and edits a lot of our articles. He put out a tweet saying that Miles Sanders returned to practice, was healthy, expected to play and get his usual usage of 0 touchdowns. And Miles Sanders liked that tweet. Like for the fantasy players, right? Not even Miles Sanders is thinking that he's going to score a touchdown this week. That said, I think he's still going to go over this number of 45 and a half. We can look here at the projections that we have at Fantasy Pros, and we can see Miles Sanders. We have him projected for 63 and a half rushing yards. And I think that makes sense. The Eagles are favored. Their number has continued to move up. At one point, they were favored by 3.5. Now they're favored by 5.5. The defensive line for the Lions, as good as it might be in the future, with Aiden Hutchinson there, with Josh Pascal, right now it's still really raw and unproven. And that Eagles team, they have the best offensive line in the league, or top 3, certainly top 3 in our unit power rankings. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. And if they get a lead, they're going to run all the more. And I think that means Miles Sanders. So he is someone that I am interested in, pretty aggressively for this upcoming week for the props. All right, the next team that I want to look at here, or next game rather, let's look at Colts at Texans here. Fantastic. No player props popping up here. All right. All right, so this is what happens when we launch a tool and have some issues. But the guy I'm looking at, clearly Dameon Pierce. And I'll just say, yeah, Jonathan Taylor, if you want to, pound the over on his rushing yardage. I talked about that earlier. Feel free to do it. Dameon Pierce is the guy who stands out here for a number of reasons, but I think you can go over 11.5 rushing attempts for him, over 46.5 rushing yards for Dameon Pierce. He's the starter. He's the locked in starter. The Colts are missing their all-pro linebacker, Shaquille Leonard. He is out. And so even better running opportunities for him. I think Davis Mills is better than people expect, which will mean that Texans offense has a decent chance of staying on the field and staying on schedule and getting more carries and more yardage opportunities for Dameon Pierce. So he is the guy that I am looking at there. Next game here, let's see if we are able to get lucky. And actually, let me just refresh this and see if that helps with anything at all. And of course, it's just taking forever. Okay, so the next game I want to look at, New England at Miami. Yes. All right, and Damian Harris is the guy that I want to focus on here. Rushing prop of 44.5. I think there's some significant value there, given that we are projecting him for 57.7 4-star rating here. I think it's a situation where the Patriots are looking to establish the run in this game. The Dolphins have a pretty good secondary. Their nose tackle, Raekwon Davis, is fairly weak against the run. And the Patriots have been experimenting with running schemes this offseason. So they are a long established power running team. This offseason, there were reports that they were struggling in practice to incorporate zone blocking schemes into their offense. I think that doesn't mean, hey, the Patriots are going to struggle to run the ball in this game. I think it means the Patriots are leaning more into the running game and getting more experimental with what they're doing because they know that the offense is predicated on their running attack. So Damian Harris over 44 and a half rushing yards. I very much like that situation for him. All right. Moving along here, want to look at the Ravens at the Jets and want to look at Michael Carter here. I think it's a situation where Carter, earlier, I bet over 8.5 rushing attempts here. We're not pulling that in right now, but I think there's value there. And you can sort of see that in that discrepancy in the rushing yardage prop. 33.5 with the rushing yards, 45.7 is his projection. I think there's value there in that he's the guy. And Breece Hall, as talented as he is a rookie, and he was not running with the first team in the preseason. I think Michael Carter is actually the starter and the lead back in that committee to open the season. And given that, 33.5 is a pretty low number. Next team to look at, the Jags. Of course, no props coming up. Next team to look at here, the Jags at the Commanders. And let's see here. Let's go to Marvin Jones. Let's see if we are able to get any Marvin Jones. Oh, beautiful. Marvin Jones popping up. All right. So under 42.5. I think there's some value there. I know that we say the projection is only 40.1. I would put the real number a little bit lower. I would say more like 35. Marvin Jones is old. He's the number 2 receiver on that team. And he was last year getting outplayed by Laquan Treadwell. Just horrible situation all the way around. Looking at the next game here, I'm thinking about the Chiefs and the Cardinals. And Mecole Hardman is the guy who stands out to me. Under 3.5 receptions here. This number is at plus 125. We got it projected exactly at 3.5. So you're basically getting very nice plus odds to flip a coin on something that we think is 50-50. Mecole Hardman has been an underachiever his entire career. I don't know why that would stop being the case now. Next game, I'm thinking about Josh Jacobs. We have the Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm looking under on his reception total and under on his receiving yards. He is no longer the receiving back within that offense. That is Amir Abdullah. So I think that there is value there. Next game I want to look at, thinking about Kirk Cousins. So the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. I think there is value here in looking under the 281.5. This number is seriously like a massive discrepancy between the projection that we have of 247.1, 5-star rating here. The Packers have a very good secondary, one of the best secondaries in the league. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but he is entering into a new system, and the Packers might be able to hold on to the ball quite a bit with their running game. So maybe fewer passing opportunities for Kirk Cousins. Next game to think about here, looking at Robert Woods, the Giants at the Tennessee Titans. Easy fade for me, whether it's the yards or the receptions here. I know we're saying over, but I think this is a Derrick Henry game. So I'm going under 52.5. It's a Derrick Henry game. Robert Woods coming off of an ACL injury, his first game back on a new team with the run heavy scheme. I think that's a very easy fade for me. And then finally, the Sunday night football game. I'm looking at big Leonard Fournette. We have the Bucs at the Cowboys. There are recent reports that the Bucs are thinking about scaling back Leonard Fournette's usage. I don't think that's going to come as a runner. I think it's going to come in the receiving game because they have Giovanni Bernard. They have the rookie Rashad White, who's a very good pass catching specialist. So I think that means under 4.5 receptions. We've got it projected for 3.9, and under 31.5 yards receiving. We've got it projected for 2.66, 5 stars, 4 stars. I love both of those. So that's it. I'm gonna call it there because we have another show coming up in a few minutes. Be sure to stick around for that. Enter all of your props, which you can track in our Betting Pros app. And everyone have a great week betting the NFL.